squatting with your knees going past your feet or doing lunges with your knees going past your feet bad for you? No. No, it's not. Not inherently, anyway. Now, some people might have knee problems and it's really uncomfortable for them to do that or very painful for them to do that. But if they didn't have knee problems, they would be perfectly fine doing that. Couple things. Number one, try squatting ass to grass without your knees coming past your feet. I guarantee you 99.99999 whatever percent of you are not going to be able to do that. Why? Because biomechanically it is wrong. It just doesn't work. Let me tell you something. So I've never had knee problems, never experienced knee problems. Sometimes my knees get kind of achy, but I will say the advantage of me practicing my knees going past my feet and just doing stretches that incorporate that made me squat way deeper, made me be able to do pistol squats, which the limiting factor for a pistol squat is actually your ankle mobility. And the more mobile your ankle is, the more your knee is going to be able to go past your foot. So if you're squatting and you're not allowing your knees to go past your feet, you are limiting your ankle mobility. You're limiting the growth you can put in your quads, because the fullest stretch you get, the deeper that stretch is when you perform a squat, or the deeper your lunge is, which in turn is going to make your knee travel past your foot, the more growth you're going to have for your legs. Now this brings me to Tom Platz. You see Tom Platz doing movements like his hack squat, which is sort of like a sissy squat, except weighted. Personally, I find it a little easier to do as well because you're locked into the machine. When you're doing a sissy squat with body weight, the balance is sort of your limiting factor, so you can't really do it under load. I mean, you can, but it's going to take a while to get to that point. With the hack squat, you can do it under load and you're locked into the machine, so balance is not your limiting factor. Now, do I think an exercise like this produces more growth than, say, a barbell squat going ass to grass? No, I do not. Here's why. So if you go based off of the logic that the more load your body is under, the more the muscles have to adapt. Say, is a 315-pound squat for 8 reps going to produce more hypertrophy than someone who's doing a 135-pound barbell squat for 20 plus reps? Which one is going to produce more hypertrophy? Well, typically the notion is that if you are under more load and you're working to failure, that will usually produce more hypertrophy. If you're going based off of like the Dorian Yates logic and some other bodybuilder logic, as long as you're going through your fullest ranges of motion with the heaviest amount of load possible for around anywhere 5 to 30 reps. 30 reps is a lot, but science typically says 5 to 30 reps is where you produce the most hypertrophy.
Challenging yourself with anything between 5 and 30 repetitions seems to have a roughly equivalent effect on muscular hypertrophy, muscle growth.
It varies person to person, but personally for me, I've seen way more growth in my legs from doing higher weight with less volume. So take that with you as you will. When I do a back squat with really heavy weight, I get that full quad development. I get that full quad sort of feel, but when it comes to nitpicking some of the muscles I want to focus on a bit more, particularly the hip flexors, I definitely feel that worked a lot more the more my knee comes past my foot. Also, a lot of you haters say that locking your knees at the top of any kind of squat or leg exercise is bad for you. Here's a video you can watch. You tell me. So Dorian Yates makes is locking out his knees in that video, and he's still walking just fine. As long as it feels fine, you don't have any problems with it, and you don't have any limitations with your knees, locking out your knees at the top of the movement isn't the worst thing you can do. I like it because it helps me get a little bit more of that contraction in the quads. I feel like when I lock my knees in place, I actually get a really nice contraction in my quads. And when you see people posing in bodybuilder competitions, they lock in their knees all the time when they're performing things like the quad stomp and just showing off their thighs in general. That's the best way you can contract the quad. So I don't know, people that say don't lock in your knees, it's like, okay, where's this fucking bro science coming from? Is that just you saying that like your knees feel uncomfortable when you do that? Which in that case, I would say do more knees over toe shit, you dummy. Just kidding. But you should be doing that. So I personally feel that knees over toes, you know, the whole controversy with it, I mean, that's like 80s football coach propaganda, you know? That's like your football coach that can't squat anymore and has a torn rotator cuff telling you what he thinks is the best way to do squats because his body is all fucked up, and that was what was told to him. You know, in the past, people didn't want you to have your knees come past your feet because it does put a lot of stress on the knees, it puts a lot of load on the knees. But even with that being said, you put a lot of stress on your joints and all kinds of compound movements. Like when you do a barbell bench press, you put a lot of stress on your rotator cuff, you put a lot of stress on your elbow. Does that necessarily mean that they're going to explode when you do 315 pounds for reps? No. As long as you are controlling the weight, that is what it's always been about. If you can control the weight and you're not just bouncing up and down from your squats and not just fucking repping out these bench presses, if you control it right, then your likelihood for injury, no matter what you do, is going to go dramatically down. It's just the people that ego lift and the people that can't really control the weight and their joints are not used to that kind of load, those are the kinds of people that get injured more often than not. Not saying that you won't get injured doing something perfectly. It can happen. There is risk and reward to everything that you do. But I'm just saying, in general, the more control you have over a movement, the less likely you are to injure yourself and reap the benefits of that exercise. If you're just going for power and being explosive, well, we can still do that too. But even the people who are best at those movements, they are precision experts when it comes to form. And even if their form kind of gets a little sloppy, like say you're deadlifting 1,000 pounds and your back kind of rounds a little bit, well, they're not deadlifting thousands of pounds all the fucking time. They're only doing it when it's showtime. So if your body is used to a lot of load, it can adapt and can recover when shit goes sideways or your form has to get a little sloppy to pick something up or press something or pull something. You know, it's all about, can the joints handle it? Have you been performing the movement correctly? Or is your body adapted to the kinds of load that you're putting it under? And typically, if you've been doing it for a long time, the body is going to adapt really well to those kind of movements. Say you're doing something like an ATG split squat, and you try and do it with 40 pounds in each hand the first time. Of course, your knees are not gonna fucking like that because you've never done that movement before. If you follow that guy's program, you are making gradual progressions, slowly, so that the body is adapting to what you are doing. It takes time to get good at things. I didn't just start pistol squatting over 80 pounds out of the blue. That took years for me to do. I wasn't just able to do it like that, just like most gym bros are not able to bench press 315 the moment they step into a high school gym. It doesn't happen. It takes time, and everybody has this sort of expectation that things are going to come real fast, because that's the society we live in. We live in a society where if you're hungry, you get fast food. If you get headaches or you got body aches, you get some Tylenol. Like, these are all fast reacting things. But in general, if you want real progress and you want to get real good at something, you want to be a precision expert, that shit takes time. It just takes time. It's the same with muscle growth. You don't just put on 20, 30, 40 pounds in a couple of months, unless you're eating like a fucking fat ass. But say it's purely muscle, that shit takes time, with or without performance enhancing drugs. I don't think knees coming past your feet is bad. If it does feel a little awkward, maybe you should do it with some elevation. Maybe you should have your heel up on a platform. Maybe you should be doing some more stretches that incorporate the knees coming past the feet, like that ankle mobility stretch where your knee touches the wall. You can kind of get some of that mobility there from doing that. I prefer this stretch that I used to do regularly. That works really well as well. And my final point being is that for all the people who are not convinced by anything I've just said, here's my last point. If you want to stretch your quad, where does your foot have to be? Where does it have to be? If you want to get the most lengthened position from your quad, where are your feet? Your knees are past your fucking feet. They're always past your feet, no matter what kind of quad stretch you are doing. So, biomechanically, the deepest stretch you can get for the quad is when your knees come far past your feet. Then that is what you need to be focusing on if you want the greatest hypertrophy and the greatest muscle growth for your quads. Just going based off of science. If science says that you working through the deepest ranges of motion is what creates the most hypertrophy, then having your knees come past your feet is going to create the most hypertrophy. So, thanks for watching the video, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time.